item, which again is Dave and Sea Change. So members, we'll do the Sea Change item to finish our trio of water items, and then we'll break at hopefully 12:30. Dave.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, so this paper is on the Sea Change project and is titled Incorporating Sea Change Objectives into the Auckland Council Group Activity. Obviously, I'll just run through this as a bit of a refresher. We recall that this was an initial paper was presented to you in to the Planning Committee in May, and that was the initial high-level appraisal of the plan. And since that date, council staff have gone away and made some further evaluation of the plan. Just like to introduce my colleague Nick Reid, who co-authored this paper, also with the Natural Environment Strategy Unit. So just recalling what we said earlier today, this is part of the water arrangement, should we call it, and in the case of Sea Change, it's a marine spatial plan for the Hauraki Gulf. There is almost nothing in that circle that isn't affected or has some interest for the Hauraki Gulf. I suppose drinking water and groundwater is probably the two that are probably not so much key to looking at the Hauraki Gulf issues. But I guess the key thing here is that there's a number of influences on the Hauraki Gulf, and we need to consider pretty much just about everything else in this circle. The Sea Change plan was developed by a stakeholder working group. It was developed independently. It was publicly released on the 6th of December. It's a non-statutory plan. It's non-binding on agencies. It sets out a vision to improve the Gulf so that it's vibrant with life, its Māori is strong and productive, and supports healthy and prosperous communities. Since the plan was referred from the steering group to agencies, the agencies have been asked to consider the plan. Since that time, in about February this year, the council evaluation group made up of different department and CCOs representatives have come together and evaluated the plan. We did our first initial feedback to the Planning Committee in May. And since then we've been asked to, as a council group, to go away and do some further work on the Auckland Council response to the plan. One of the key things we noted earlier was that the plan did not consider what is currently being undertaken by Auckland Council Group. And so one of the key things that the evaluation group of council had to do was to go through pretty much their existing activities and sort of compare those with some of the aspirations set out in Sea Change. What we've been doing is working out how we can actually embed a number of the objectives that Sea Change seeks to achieve in the Auckland Council work program. The further aspect that we were asked to do is to obviously consider how this might be resourced, this activity. And we've got some initial work done on that, and the attachments that we've got to the paper do provide a bit more analysis on the priority that we've given some of this work going forward. So, as we've said, we've sort of looked at this in the context of what we're doing, what we might want to do as an Auckland Council group over the next 10 years. This obviously maps to the long-term plan initiative, and basically it indicates what things might be new versus what things might be already an activity that's already undertaken but could be enhanced. What we've tried to do is to also highlight the highest priorities, and the Council Evaluation Group, based on their existing activity and also our own analysis, suggests that really a lot of the water quality themes are pretty much your number one issue as a council group. So that very much is consistent with our discussion today. And that's drilled down into a number of different elements when we talk about water quality, and that's outlined in the presentation theme as well as in the paper. One of the other resolutions of the Planning Committee was to form a political reference group, and this group initially met on the 2nd of August, and that provided an opportunity for members on that group to review very quickly the group's work that had been undertaken in the preceding few months. I think the members indicated reasonably clearly that they felt that meeting was quite useful in terms of giving them an appreciation of the level of integration and assessment of the different work activity that was being considered. We also tabled at that meeting a possible terms of reference for the political reference group, and that's in your attachments to this paper, attachment B. And basically the purpose is to oversee and guide the proposed work program of Auckland Council Group as the key thing, and also to help facilitate integration of council work programs with other agencies as may be required. The members on the political reference group include both members from the Environment Community Committee, the Planning Committee, the Deputy Mayor, local boards and the Independent Māori Statutory Board. In terms of the local boards, we've got a sort of a remit, should we call it, or a resolution from them that they're happy with the member that they've put forward. And in the case of a mainland local board representative, that's something we still need to determine. So we've suggested the Hibiscus Coast or Franklin local boards might be useful contributors to that particular membership on the basis that they have a reasonable stretch of coast alongside the Gulf. The other observation is that 4 members of the political reference group are also on the Hauraki Gulf Forum, so that provides a little bit of integration with that particular group and their workings, so that's also quite helpful. So from today's report, we're really looking to see the Council approve the indicative work program, and secondly to approve the terms of reference for the Auckland Council Political Reference Group for sea change. I'll just note in the terms of reference there is an incorrect reference to the title of the political reference group on the 2nd and 3rd page. I think I've got in there the text that says the Coastal Political Group. It should be the Auckland Council Sea Change Taitimu to Taipari Political Reference Group. So that was something that's correct on the main page, but otherwise that just needs to be corrected for the minutes. But I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say in terms of introduction to the paper, apart from the fact that there's been a lot of work done over the last 4 months to try and come back to you with an indicative work program. A number of the initiatives will be dependent on long-term planning and how you fund various initiatives and prioritise those. So we would be interested in developing that further with the political reference group going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave and Nick. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, it looks like a big complex work program, but that's part of what the group are going to trudge their way through, is which bits are already underway, which bits do we just need to redefine or redevelop. Are people comfortable with that and comfortable with the terms of reference for the group?
Yep.
Okay. Happy to move. Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Seconded, Councillor Filipaina. Any comments anyone wishes to make? Councillor Darby.
Thanks, Dave. This is good work. So, Sea Change was an integrated package, and you've reflected that integrated package here, which I think is important. One of the big areas is sediment, and you identify that in theme 9. Are you confident that we've captured, particularly in the urban environment, and I know there's a huge body of work in the rural environment, but in the urban environment we've got some 25% approximately of urban Auckland is road network, and mostly impermeable road network. Are you confident that we've captured the responsibility of Auckland Transport in that area? There's a lot of headline references there, but I just need to understand what sits under those references.
Yes, a good observation. I think there is opportunity for the political reference group to tease some of that out a bit further, because I think there is opportunity for Auckland Transport to offer up a bit more scope of what work they're doing. They have indicated a number of things that they are doing to look at dust trials, for example, in the Rodney area. So there are a couple of trials that they're doing, and they're talking about part of the asset management plan, how they would improve stormwater treatment. So there's some things that they have indicated, and they've also talked about a water action plan that they're going to put to their board in the next month. So there are some things that they've said, and it just seems to me that it'll be really useful for Auckland Transport to take the opportunity to come to the reference group with any further information that they can provide to give some comfort to the council that that's been responded to appropriately.
So just in terms of, say, the Isthmus area, and we've had a group or groups, plural, representing community concern about wastewater overflows. I can't decouple Auckland Transport's responsibility for creating a huge volume of stormwater in that area, which is a significant contributor to that problem. And I just want to have some confidence that this roadmap of projects captures those interfaces. It doesn't just set it aside as a Healthy Waters division of Auckland Council to deal with water care, and not ignore the fact that Auckland Transport is one of the most significant contributor in terms of its impervious area under its control. So that we've got room to move in here on that, have we?
Absolutely. I think that's a very valid observation. I think we do need to, well, firstly, we recognise, as we've discussed this morning, that it's a bit of a soup of contaminants, and we really need to get everyone to sort of recognise that they're contributing to some of the answers going forward. And so I do feel that there is an opportunity here for Auckland Transport to indicate how some of their initiatives will interface with Auckland Council and water care as well. And there's some work they've been doing, obviously, but I think there's an opportunity to further test that and make some headway into that particular area.
And just very briefly, I think there's some great reports here today, some reports that have probably been overdue, but look, they're here now, and we can only look forward and know that we're addressing some critical issues. I'm a member of the Hareka Golf Forum, have been for a long time, and the Sea Change body of work is a critical body of work that cannot be shelved. And it's great to see our staff pick the body of work up, the Sea Change body of work, where unfortunately some of our partner councils have just parked it on the shelf. Although in saying that, I recognise the proactive approach of Waikato Regional Council, our key partner. Madam Chair, there's a lot that's been said about the contaminants that are coming out of the rural environments, and they are tremendous. The whole of the Firth of Thames is just full of nitrates, phosphorus, sediments, and it's a really big worry. And a lot of it is out of our catchments. We'll be addressing that through this body of work, but I cannot shy away, we should not shy away of what we can do in addressing the impervious area that is as I referenced, it's about 25% of Auckland Transport's impervious road network, which is a significant contributor of contaminants. They are different contaminants, they're still sediments, but they're also the metals. And when those metals bind with, once they're in the receiving environments, particularly the marine receiving environments, they sink to the bottom, they become embedded, and they are very difficult to well, you can't extract them. It would be, you create another problem trying to extract them. But this is a big challenge for Auckland Transport. We are going to have a water sensitive design plan for Auckland Transport. They cannot we cannot generate the amount of stormwater off the transport network as we are currently. We've got some issues in the clearing of gutters and culverts right now, or cesspits. I'm not confident that that program of works, which sits under Healthy Waters, is doing the job. If I look at that truck that runs up and down my street and yours, if the street is heavily parked up, it just goes around it. And there is no program to sweep behind the parked cars. So we're missing a whole lot. There's a lot of unfortunate sort of baggage of ignorance here. And we've got a long way to go. So I'm really encouraged to see this work come up. I'm really delighted to be part of it. But this has got some big dollars sitting in behind it, as well as the earlier report today.
Councillor, I think there are big dollars, you're quite correct, and I would love to see the cost-benefit analysis for NZTA if we costed up things like the East-West link and the potential impact on water quality. If we could actually leverage out the kind of dollars from some of those big roading projects and use them to clean up the generated stormwater, I think we might start getting somewhere, so watch that space. Councillor Simpson. No, not Councillor Simpson. Member Brown.
E te whanaunga e kōrero au tuatai e te reo rangatira, e kōrero au kia rātou e tuarua e te reo Pākehā. Mi atu kia koe rama. I'm just explaining, Madam Chair, that I'll do my own interpretation. Nō reira, tēnā kōrua mō tō mahi kia tātou nei. E mihi ana tāna mahi tātou, he awa wā, ki tēnei kaunihera, ki tēnā. O te rā, just acknowledging, Madam Chair, the many council and communities that participated in the belly of what's now the sea change plan, and do acknowledge that within that belly there are a number of competing interests insofar as whichever community you may or may not have represented. And uniquely for today, I just want to put my Māori hat on insofar as tuatai e te reo rangatira, tana wairu o te wai. O te rā kei rongi e te maunga, ko te waipuhi e te waiora. Kei raro e te maunga, e te waimate. Anei e whakamārama tātou e roto e te waha. I tēnei awa, ki tēnā awa, po ta mai nei e te paru e roto e te moana, e te awatanga, ko te awatangaroa. So just saying very briefly, Madam Chair, that at the top of the mountain, the water is pure. As it makes its way down the river, through the belly of us as a people, and it hits the river mouth for some reason, it's pretty dead. Then as it enters into the puku of Tangaroa, the Māori demigod of the sea, the rest is quite frankly history, insofar as the effects that are occurring, whether it's sediment or heavy rainfall, stormwater, whatever it may be. But did start with acknowledging the great work of all the folk that arrived at the plan. Te pātai au ki te mahi kia tātou I tēnei wā. Nō reire, whakamārama mātou e noho ana e te tohu, kei waho, e kaore mōhio ana e noho ana e te turu I te kōti. So just saying that we acknowledge that this plan is not legally binding. And the first question I have really for the report and the update is, are we intending to make it legally binding? When I hear about councils parking it on shelves, because that would be helpful in the context of how much or less sincerity we really are talking about insofar as the integrity of the plan. If we looked at the energy of the unitary plan made for the mainland, including parts of some of the waterways, for the life of me I can't see why we wouldn't pay the same attention to the same plan out in the moana. So I'm a bit concerned that it remains as the Māori community on this pendulum of no, it's not a legally binding thing, but last but not least, I wanted to capitalise on the bubbles that are before me around the three matters of water today, insofar as the Māori bubble that includes things like Māori, looking at the earlier presentation of online communications to inform people in real time, and it was really a simple request by the Māori behind that scene of can the website fit a portal in there quite actively that presents the rāhui matters and or other matters of cultural significance in real time, not just the technical pollution matters in real time, so as people understand why culturally it could be unsafe even though the water quality's looking pretty cool. There may have been an incident or a death the day before, and that includes places like Hunua Falls, and so far as safe swim. But the question I have for the group today around sea change is it intended to at least grab some statutory teeth of this plan as opposed to whatever platform it sits on now? Because it just feels like if it's a council activity, great, but if it ain't, then we're really not interested. And one of those activities could be in compromise to the Māori world. For example, the kōrero of let's have a great big marine park in Auckland, yet it's been our fishing ground for centuries and centuries and centuries. I'm aware of the debate. So it all remains quite flimsy until it finds a coat hanger to hang itself on statutorily and legally, so that ourselves and our officials can get on with the real work of what the plan intends. We ana me nunu kia kora.
Do you want to break those three bits down, Dave? So the statutory side first?
Yes, so firstly, the intent is to take the key elements of sea change and then look at sort of hanging them on a coat, as it were, which is under the council statutory function, for example, or it might be that we might advocate certain positions to central government in terms of some relevant, legislative architecture they have. So the best way to sort of bring this in and actually influence the statutory context is to say, what do we got currently? How does this? How can we use this advice to inform our position for particular legislative or regulatory responses that we have to do, or council has to do as part of its business? So it's very much about trying to embed it within the structures that are already there.
And just the second part of that, just going back to the safe swim issue and the rāhui in real time, I think the answer we got from the safe swim team was there are complexities to that they're working through, but an acknowledgement that in an ideal world, that's exactly the kind of thing that would be available in real time.
Yes, and just one of the other challenges I just want to highlight is that there's many moving parts and things get reformed and new ideas come along, and one of the challenges for council staff in this last 4 or 5 month period is to be comparing what sea change has identified with what's happening in that dynamic world and trying to join the dots. So we're very much trying to take the best approach to sort of inform and enhance the council's response to this plan.
Tēnā koe, tēnā kora. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Kia ora. Now I've got Councillor Cashmore and then Councillor Darby again, and then we will need to break because we are still not even halfway through yet. Councillor Cashmore.
Very brief, Madam Chair. Dave and Nick, how does this work we're doing here correlate with the MPS on freshwater management, given the criticism that was levelled at Auckland by the Crown that we weren't meeting the objectives of the legislation, but also recognised our uniqueness, that we had no water bodies inside the urban area that met basic water body quality standards, and I think 2 or 3 outside that didn't. So how's the correlation work?
So one of the things we've been saying to Wellington as recently as this last week is yes, we are approaching this in a much broader context. We are thinking about things not as a simple sort of jigsaw where all the parts are known and there's no change. We've got the watershed planning initiative that Healthy Waters is convening, and that in the next couple of months will provide a bit more of an idea as to where the current state is and all the different factors that are affecting water outcomes in a particular catchment. So it's very much focused on then taking that message back to central government and saying this is the kind of drivers that the Auckland context is all about, we need to think about how that could be better articulated going forward. So I think we will be sort of pushing back eventually and saying, well, actually, we are achieving water outcomes, maybe not in the quite prescriptive way that has been set out from Wellington to start with.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Fit for
councillor.
purpose.
What's that?
Fit for purpose, in other
Yeah,
words.
exactly, exactly. Last question, councillor Darby.
And apologies for the late question, Madam Chair. I just
all right.
picked up my own notes on page 32. I had a concern about the makeup. We are confirming under B today the membership of the reference group. And thanks, Dave, the mainland local board member. I don't think just those 3 boards are enough. I actually think, in fact, I would be very open for an additional 2 from the mainland boards to be added to that reference group, and I don't know whether there's a willingness here, but I know that there's a lot of passionate people in the local boards that would probably like to be part of this. So it's a bit of a late sounding, Madam Chair, but one is I don't think it should be restricted to 3 boards. It's probably the boards which have catchment for the Hauraki Gulf, and I would be even open to a further 2 local board members to be part of that group.
So we're asking for 2 more. And
At the
you-
moment, the recommendation
You're
from our
saying make
staff
it
is
5
1
more.
mainland local board member
Right.
from one of 3 boards. I would prefer to leave that open, or just possibly boards with catchments.
Yeah,
To the
I think
Hauraki?
we could have three local boards, remembering that this is, an oversight and guiding group, and we need to make sure that this isn't instead of talking to local boards, it's as well
Absolutely.
as talking to local boards. So, we don't have to have everybody there to make sure they're heard. I think we need to have a special and ongoing forum where we actually discuss the wider issues with local boards. So I'm happy that we have 3.
So 2 from mainland.
Yeah.
So, and the second column would be from boards which have catchments to the Hauraki Gulf.
Yeah. Yep, that's fine.
Can we check with the staff, or I don't like to?
No, I think everyone's going,
Dave?
that's fine.
So I'm just trying to clarify exactly what you might want there. So if you want, do you want 2 mainland local board members from those 3, or do you want those 3 mainland boards represented there, Hibiscus, Franklin and Rodney? So if you want all those 3, that's cool. Or do you just want 2 of those 3? And then the second question was, do you want to make it more complicated by making adding others? I'm not sure.
So my gut feeling is, why don't we say, if you want 4 board members, which I think is fine, and maybe we might get another woman, which would be quite good, seeing I am the only female on the group, that we take that to the board chairs and say, what do you think? And, I think that's probably the easiest. So why don't we leave it open, as chair of the group? I'm sure councillor Filipaina's deputy chair is fine with that. Let's, we've got the opportunity for 3. Let's go to the local board chairs forum and ask for their.
That's good. Yep.
Okay, do we need to add that in to
As
the
am- as
recommendations,
amended.
or will we just remember to do that?
remember to do it.
I think we'll just remember to do that. We're quite good at that. Okay, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. So we're now going to break for half an hour, and then we will start, and I apologise to the staff who've been waiting to do our urban Gahiri strategy. We will wait, I'm sorry, just have to wait for another half an hour, and then we'll start with that. So whatever the time is now, half an hour's time.